Swattings were essentially spankings.
It was like a piece of wood that was like that big, like a handle on them.
They would pull it all the way back and smack you.
And they would have you face the wall, and then they would sit there and just wail on you.
You didn't eat your food all the way, you'd get a swat. Didn't read your Bible, you got a swat.
But to where you're holding a paddle like a baseball bat is a little too far.
And that happened?
Yeah, every single one of us.
It hurt an abnormal amount to me. And so afterwards I went to the bathroom and I checked, and like immediately there were already these huge bruises and welts.
We should not, as a state, allow programs that repeatedly use such a level of physical punishment that they leave bruises on kids.
It was called Total Life Change.
One of the rooms that they would put kids in was a linen closet.
We weren't allowed to talk to anybody.
There's a sense of shame, there's a sense of anger, they feel alone, they feel rejected.
So what I did, I had like a little Tupperware container that I would use the bathroom in, and I would just dump it out in the mornings.
That would be your bedroom for however long they wanted it to be your bedroom, and you were cut off from anyone else.
I was in that room with just a Bible and a few changes of clothes, and that was it.
You know, you do all the dishes, you don't go out, you do all the laundry, don't talk to nobody, you don't see nobody until you get right with God.
I've known kids that spent on it for 6 months and they can't talk to anyone.
I needed to be closer to God and work on my relationship with God.
For a good like maybe half a year, we were put on this like work restriction just because we were straying away from God.
So we're working pretty much from sunup to sundown.
They had a sand pit just outside the boys' dorm, and they'd give you a shovel.
You have to like dig a hole and then fill it back up.
So they would make you dig holes for what?
Dig holes. We rake dirt because we already raked all the leaves off the ground.
This is sand. It's gonna keep coming in and coming in and coming in. So it was, I learned that pretty quickly. This is gonna be arbitrary. They're just gonna make us dig until they say stop.
Kids didn't really go to the dentist, and we never saw like doctors. If you were sick, we'd kind of just like write it out unless you were not getting better.
You remember ever going to a doctor?
Never to a doctor.
They wouldn't literally take you unless it was an emergency situation.
I had this infection, and I kept on telling them about it, and they just didn't do anything. And it was like a week later that it finally erupted, and then they finally rushed me to the emergency room.
My dad died when I was 5, and my mom, she was addicted to drugs.
And we didn't have running water or electricity for 2 months.
It was really hard to hear as a 10-year-old girl that my own father didn't even want to see me.
You have to give your testimonies, and usually they pick the kids who have it the worst.
I mean, you were put on the spot, so you had to do it.
Some of them had pretty heinous situations they were coming from, and I didn't know if it was a good idea for them to have to repeat it over and over and over again.
So a lot of kids, you know, would just be telling all these strangers about their whole life story, and some of it was pretty traumatic.
You're a good little kid. You're a good little lad.
Mike Higgins and Chris Higgins would prep you to what to say.
Maybe you should say this, maybe you should say that, you know.
Or were we maybe sacrificing the best interest of that child for some fundraising capability?
They get excited about how God's working in this ministry, but quite frankly, sometimes it's like they forget to give. And somehow, through the excitement and love for what's happening here, that has to translate to giving.
But we were always putting out letters and stuff like that, like, oh, we're almost out of food, we're almost out of money. We need more, donate more, donate more. I mean, there was even a time where we've almost ran out of room for all the stuff that we had.
They put us on diets, very, very strange diets. We got much smaller portions than everyone else.
You weren't allowed to have second helpings, you weren't allowed to have dessert, you were limited on what you were allowed to drink.
I know how I look, but it's a little girl. And how can you look at a 9-year-old girl and say you're ugly? You need to lose weight. No one's gonna want to adopt you when you look like that. No one's gonna want to be around you.
You see kids who end up feeling worthless as a result, and they may cut on themselves, they may become suicidal.
I cut myself in any way I could find. I'd get glass, blades. I needed to hurt myself.
I had an accident at work and I lost my job, and I was in a desperate place to put my kids.
I lost my job, ended up in the hospital, and my husband lost his job. We couldn't find anyone to help us with the kids, and while we found other jobs.
They made me sign a temporary custody form.
And we signed papers, all kinds of papers, but they were supposed to give us copies when we left that night, and we never got them.
She agreed to sign the kids over, there were 3 of them, to this organization, and they accepted custody of the children, and after a short time the mother was ready to take the kids back. They would not allow it.
It just was ridiculous. They're my own children. I never did anything to them. I never hurt them. I never smoked crack or did drugs or drank, anything like that, and they've got my children and won't give them back.
They brought out Matt Higgins, who said that, oh, we're not sure if we're going to let them go. And I told him, I said, I have the cops on call to come get the children. I said, either you come bring my children out now or they'll come in and get my children.
Well, actually we filed a lawsuit against the organization and they surrendered. They gave us the kids back almost immediately.